Hello, how are you doing? My name is Alan Keary and I write and perform music as Shunya. It's a real honour to be able to do this kind of experiment or workshop, if you will, for the Ribble Valley Jazz and Blues Festival. We decided, instead of having just a straight up performance, we said maybe why not do like an instructional video describing a composition process. So in this instance, I wanted to show to you how you can make a tune with just one sound source to create everything from the drums, bass, melody, rhythm elements. And in this instance, I used a single violin. You can use anything. You can use the sound of waterfalls or birds chirping or a cat meowing. But in this instance, I used a violin because that's what I had to hand. So yeah, the track you're hearing right now is that track, and I'm going to break it down for you right now. Okay, so as I mentioned previously, I'm going to make an entire track using a violin as the sound source. So we're going to use the violin to create the kick drum, the snare, the hi-hats, different pad elements, the bass. Maybe I'll do some singing at the end, who knows? But I'm more just focused on getting a vibe and a backdrop, if you will, that could later become a song. But I just kind of wanted to show to you guys the possibility you can get from just a single sound source, and actually how that limitation can kind of lead to kind of quite interesting things. So be it if you're a guitar player or a drummer, you know, even just using your instrument as the sole backdrop, that can become a track, you know, as opposed to being overwhelmed by sample packs or drum libraries and all that kind of stuff. These are things that I'm not really fond of. I usually just try to use sound sources that are available to me in this room, bits of percussion I have lying around, and my voice, or sampling the cat or whatever it is. All these things aren't new. Everyone samples their cat. Also, I'm going to try to be a very, very good boy. I'm only going to use... I could be wrong here. I'm going to try just use Logic stock plugins. And again, just to show you that like you don't need a lot of stuff to make a track, you know? Let's pick a tempo. Oh my god. 126. That could be... Cool. So I'm gonna noodle on the violin. I'm not even gonna play anything predetermined with the click or anything. I'm just going to noodle and then sample in, because I'm really good at noodling. Very bad at playing anything that's actually concrete. Okay, let's get some. Yeah, that can be a basis for now. I can always come back and get more sound sources when I'm ready. So I'm going to start by just getting an Atmos. How I compose sometimes is usually it usually starts from like a bed of sound that will create a mood. And obviously, I think in this instance, it's going to be something that's quite kind of harmonically nice and major. So I'm just going to quickly smash all these notes together and see what I get. Gonna create all these stacks, making a pad. And this is all improvised. I'm not really. It's quite nice. Let's put that down the octave. Let's pan these. Just chucking them around completely randomly. Nothing to a grid, nothing lined up. It's all just dragging and dropping audio. Let's make this. Let's make this. This is a mono, so I recorded with just one microphone. So I want to make it wider. So let's just put a spreader on that, just to open it up a little bit in the stereo field. The reason it's nice to make things stereo, well, obviously modern music, everyone listens to stereo. Mono is useful for referencing on the, for example, like the mini rigs. A lot of people use those portable mini rigs. That's all good, but stereo, otherwise it's always stereo. We always listen to music with headphones or whatever, or like, you know, 2 sets of speaker, or if you're at a gig, it's always going to be 2 sets of speakers usually. So to be able to experiment with the stereo field, i.e. using panning between left and right speakers, so I'm just going to put a tremolo on this also, just to create more of movement between the 2 speakers. Okay, great. I'm just going to commit to that. I'm just going to bounce it to make it all one block. And I save that just in case I want to go back to it, but I probably won't, because I'm just going to commit and delete everything. So now I'm just left with one piece of audio. Okay, let's move on to the percussion. I want to get a drum groove. So let's just quickly duplicate these. Let's call this. Let's call these a snare. This could be quite useful as a hi-hat. Obviously, I'm just kind of abstractly kind of going through these, what I could use them for, and with the use of some signal processing, EQ, we could probably get something useful out of these little. This could also be quite cool for a hi-hat, but if I just be really selective on the piece of audio that I use from it, I could just really zoom in and just take one piece, like so. So you're kind of left with that kind of thing. You know, before you know it. So yeah, I'll use that. Let's say hi-hat 2. That can kind of be more of a kind of a glitched kind of feeling, I suppose. These could kind of work as almost like a bongo drum. So give the feeling that we're sat around a campfire in a festival. This is quite cool. That could be kind of, I'm hearing that as almost like a drummer doing like a kakura with the snare. Sometimes a drummer will kind of hit the snare and kind of move the fingers. Not that we're trying to emulate a drummer, but obviously that's our reference. So at the moment I'm looking for something that's just going to be our kick. Like just a straight up something that we can always lean on. Let's try use one of these bongo things. And let's try, I'm just going to grab one hit, duplicate that. And I'm going to pitch it down and process it. And in this processing, that should give us something that kind of resembles a kick. So I'm not sure if anyone, whoever's watching this, Ableton, Logic, whatever you're doing, whatever DIW, whatever software you're using, will always have a sampler in it, as you may or may not know. So I'm going to quickly load this into my sampler of choice, which is the ESX24. I want to pitch this down as much as possible to make a sound. So I've just taken that sample and then just stretched it across the keyboard. And the amount of possibilities, it always just surprises me the amount of musical happy accents come out of this process, you know. So we haven't really been looping or looking at a groove yet. I've just been kind of, at this point, I've just been sample arranging. I've just been chopping up, and what I'm doing now is basically what in the kitchen you get, what are they called? You get the chef, and then is it the sous chef, is it? Or someone who preps ingredients. Their whole job is basically just chopping up carrots, chopping up onions, and grinding spices and all that, so that when the chef comes in, he's got everything laid out in front of him to be able to prepare the meals or whatever. So this is basically what I'm doing, and this is usually the boring part, but it's quite vital in terms of getting like a sound palette that you can just reach towards. And again, like these are the only sounds I'm going to be using. So it's having that limitation is quite liberating, because you're not going to go, oh well, what else can I add to it, you know, within this mad presets of sample libraries. There's a really good artist called Matthew Herbert. If you haven't checked him out, he's brilliant. He just he strictly makes tunes out of sampling, and he'll sample like goats being slaughtered and, you know, you name it, and he'll make kick drums and synthesizers all from these single sound sources, almost like as a kind of a political statement as well, with vegetarianism and stuff. Anyway, moving on, let's work on a kick. So I'm just going to loop this round. Okay, that's gonna be something. Right, there's I'm sorry, like the chair squeaking or something. Let's see if I can just bring that out and use that. So cool, I'm going to load this into the sampler again, the keyboard, and basically this allows me to, let's call it hi-hat 3. This just allows me to play it in like an instrument, so I'm not dragging and dropping. editing these as I go. Just if I hear something that's a bit out of timing wise or groove wise, it just, you know, it needs to feel nice from the get go. So I always try to recommend, you know, editing as you go along, because it just kind of saves time later. And you often find that, oh, this track really isn't working, or I don't really know what it is, and usually it's because it's not edited and the elements aren't grooving together. So I'd always really recommend making sure you're making it groove as much as possible. Obviously depends what kind of music you're making, but you know, so much music is groove based. Even classical music is all groove based. Everything is feel. Everything has to feel good, you know. So whether you're making folk music or techno, it's still all feel, you know. Very important. That's a lesson. I'm just going to shape this kick a little bit. It's just a little bit too flabby. So I want to make it a bit tighter. So I can do that by just taking down the decay here. So before, after. And I'm just going to take away some of the click. So I'm just getting a bit more of the body. My favorite plugins in the world, which is the Logic Overdrive, and this will just bring out a bit more of the oomph. Quite like this. I'm going to try and incorporate that. Let's try pitch shifting. Pitch shifting is just a great way to kind of get more interest. Except it doesn't like to do it sometimes. I'm going to cheat here and use... No, I will use the Logic stock plugin. Pitch shifter. Let's try it down. And again, I'm going to send this to a spring reverb, just to give it a bit of a splash. Spring reverb is very kind of commonly used in, well, all over the shops, like a big thing in like in the early 1940s. It was one of the first types of reverb because it was quite simple. The technology behind it is quite simple. You basically feed you feed a signal into a little box that has a spring in it, and it basically just starts shaking, and that kind of resembles a hall. It's ingenious, really, and we still use it today. It's a great effect. I love. Cool. Let's go and use this kind of... Let's try to get a pattern going here. Let's try like just even something simple, just like on the... all still a violin, lads. Okay, cool. Okay, I've got an idea. So yeah, I'm gonna just automate the EQ slope just to create a bit more like of a almost like a wah pedal, you know, that kind of thing. I'm gonna automate that. And I just basically click latch here, and that allows me to, whatever I move in the plugin, it records that movement in real time. Yeah, and now that's should play back. It's cool. And I'm also going to add a little bit of width to give that pattern some more movement, because it's just a little bit boring at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a quick pad, and how I'm going to make a pad is I'm just going to record one note of the violin in, and then make a sampler instrument out of that, so like stretch out that one note to make a pad basically. So let's do that quick. Okay, so I'm just going to actually chuck these on top of each other to create an octave. I'm just going to make a long note. And then bounce this down. La. So I'm getting kind of a drone essentially, but then I'm going to load it in to that sampler that I used to create the kick drum, and then spread it out across the keyboard, so I've got like a pad, and let's call it violin pad. What this is just stretches out that, so I've got it across the range of the keyboard. I'm not really much of a keyboard player. I do white notes basically. It's almost like a harmonium or something. It sounds really interesting. I'm just going to give this a little bit of movement, like you would like an old tape head that's like knackered. Lovely. I'm digging that already. I'm just going to add a touch distortion. Actually, no, I'm going to leave it as it is. I might use the same sound for the bass. Great, so I'm just going to quickly get a
a very loose arrangement. I'm going to take out this amp actually because I think it's just a little bit annoying. I'm just going to duplicate that, bosh it up the octave, and I just want to take a very slight fragment of that and loop it. So kind of out of this, if we were to take an arrangement, if we have this kind of pad that's kind of setting the mood, as it were. Set the mood. From this, I want this little pulse to kind of emerge from it to give the listener a feeling of the tempo, because at the moment this is quite spacious and you're not really getting anything concrete out of it. It's free time basically. So I'm going to introduce this to establish the pulse, basically. I'm just going to do some automation here just to kind of give it a bit more shape. There's quite a lot of high-end stuff going in terms of like high, you know, obviously violin's a high instrument, so I'm going to try and make it as slow as possible. I started doing some nice chords there, so I'm going to quickly bounce this down, because I basically work a lot better when I see audio files as opposed to MIDI here. So I'm just going to quickly chop. I'm just going to also automate this, so it kind of creeps in with this pad. It's lovely, it's really nice. And I'm just going to also get a bass going. So with the same sound source that we made this pad from, and I'm going to make this monophonic, because I don't need chords. Monophonic is just one voice. Polyphonic meaning many voices, so chords. I'm not going to be doing anything chordy, so I want it just to be a single bass line. And I'm also going to take off a lot of the top end, you know. So you're just left with the bass frequencies. And now to this I'm going to add some distortion. Okay, that's something. I'm just going to give it a little bit more movement. So all these things, like this sound literally was just that. 1 point. So it's like, how do you keep introducing new things into the sound to make it emulate like a bass synth, for example? So this is where what I'm doing is just signal processing. It's just manipulating the audio to make it sound like it's something completely separate from a violin in this instance. So I'm going to add some tremolo just to create more of a wah 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 wah, not like a wah 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 dubstep wah, but I want a little bit of movement. You know what I mean? Hello guys, hello. So since I last left, yes, I've had a cup of coffee, had a cup of joe, and I've just done a little bit more work on this composition. And yeah, it's kind of like a wee little tune now, and it's kind of fleshed out to be quite nice. Again, this originally started off as an experiment to see how much we could stretch a violin sample. But I've lied. I've added some vocals, just a little bit, and I'll just take you through. I've also added a few more violin bits. I'll just take you through exactly what I've done here, and then we'll just play the tune start to finish to bring it to a close. So let's see what we have here. So yeah, vocal-wise, I've just created this little hi-hat kind of thing by just going and then chopping it up. Oh yeah. And then also I kind of wanted to create like a cymbal swell, like a that you sometimes drummers would do with like a pair of mallets or something. So I've kind of done that with me just going by doing a s into the mic and then doubling it. That sounds like this. And that's also going through a delay, which is automated. I can show you there. That delay there. What else? Okay, I've also added some me wailing, waffling. I'll admit I'm so bad with lyrics. It's no excuse, but there's always the last thing that goes down on my tunes, and usually I prefer a lot simpler lyrics. I'm not a poet by any stretch of the imagination. I think I just need to read more, to be honest. But I did some wailing. I just wailed the first thing that came into my head, and it's kind of some nonsense and also some Irish in there as well. But this sounds like this. Yeah, just to give it a vibe. You know, I don't know. It's a weird one. Like if because we write music so much electronically, i.e., like we rely on software. If I do anything that's too in the box, when I mean in the box, I mean inside Logic or Ableton or whatever you're working on, I just feel like it's just not music unless there's something that comes out of the box, outside of the box, that moves air into a microphone, i.e. voice or some form of instrument that's moving air. That's just my opinion anyway. I can't relate to music too much that's too electronic, where you can, I don't know, it just sounds a bit cold and digital to me. But anyway, that's a side track. I've also added some other kind of texture kind of stuff, which was again produced by the violin. Quite cool. And I've also added this kind of pseudo bongo. I called it bongo, and that's been distorted. Yeah, so all of the beat sounds like this. Yeah, all a violin and a vocal. That's exactly what you're hearing. And then finally, I've just added some extra kind of bits, some melodic hook here. With a plucked synth. Well, not a plucked synth, that just I plucked the violin, I plucked one note and then loaded it into the sampler and stretched it out like I showed you before. And then doubled that with the violin and vocal. I know I'm just kind of going all over the place, but it will all make sense when I play the tune in its entirety. And there's just one last thing also. I just added like a panning vocal. Cool. Okay, so in its entirety, this is the tune. I don't know, I suppose overall it took me about 2 hours to do, from the first session when I sat down and we kind of got ideas originally going with the sampling, and then I just tweaked some bits here and there just to make it a little bit more concise. But other than that, it's all stock plugins, just a violin, just a voice. Here we go. that's it. Thanks very much, guys.